Well, good morning, boys and girls. I hope that you all had a good night's rest and that you're ready to listen to some stories. The first one I thought I would start with is called 10 Little Bears. It's a counting storybook. So, here we go. We have 10 little bears, time to rise and shine. One stayed in bed, then there were 9. 9 little bears learning how to skate. One slipped and fell, then there were 8. 8 little bears counting clouds in heaven. One rolled away, then there were 7. 7 little bears built a house of sticks. One got a splinter, then there were 6. 6 little bears searching for a hive. One got stung, then there were 5. See all the little bears over there? They look like they were having fun until he got stung by the bee. 5 little bears playing on the shore. One sailed away, then there were 4. Well, I think they're having fun in the water. I bet that's something you are all looking forward to this summer too, going swimming. Now, there were 4 little bears climbing up a tree. One tumbled down, and then there were just 3. 3 little bears playing peekaboo. One got scared, then there were 2. 2 little bears racing in the sun. One got too hot, then there was 1. 1 little bear, tired from all the fun, went home to nap. Then there were none. Now that story, that counting rhyme, was by Kathleen Haig, and it was illustrated by Michael Haig. This is a book that you can get here at our library. Now, the next story I'm going to read is about fire trucks. And I know I have a grandson who loves stories about fire trucks, so I thought I would read one to you as well. It's called Working Hard with Busy Fire Trucks. Now, it was written by Jordan Horowitz and illustrated by Stephen James Petruccio. See that nice bright red fire engine truck? We're going to learn about firemen and what they do. Firefighter Tom arrives at the fire engine bright and early. Good morning, he calls to the other firefighters. Every day, the firefighters take turns doing different jobs. Today, it's Tom's turn to check the fire truck. First, he inspects the fire hoses. He turns on the headlights and he makes sure that the siren is working. Then he washes the truck and fills the gas tank with fuel. Now the fire truck is ready for action. Now this is a picture showing the inside of the upstairs of the firehouse. If you'll see, we have beds here for the firemen to sleep in, and then there's a kitchen for them to fix their food. When they're on duty, they're usually on duty for at least 24 hours, so they need a place to sleep and a place to eat when they're staying there. The other firefighters clean the fire station. One polishes the fire pole, another tidies up the kitchen. All the firefighters work hard to keep their fire station neat and clean. The fire chief gathers all the firefighters together. He gives each one a special fire truck assignment. Bob will be in charge of the water pumper controls. Sam will drive the truck today. and Tom will handle the nozzle at the top of the ladder. Now the firefighters are ready for any fire emergency that comes along. Uh-oh, see how they're rushing to get their jackets on? Their coats are usually waterproof and also insulated against heat. Soon the warning chimes sound over the speaker. Bing bong, emergency, emergency, calls the dispatcher. Highway 17, north of town. The firefighters charge into action. They put on their boots and fireproof coats. Then they grab their helmets and run to the fire truck. See how they came down the pole over here? That is so they can get down to the fire truck and get to the emergency faster than just using stair steps. Tom slides open the huge fire station door. He directs the fire truck out to the street. Wee, wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. You can say that with me if you like. Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. The speedy fire truck heads to the rescue. The fire truck drives up to a farm. There's smoke coming out of the barn, but the firefighters are in time to stop the fire before it spreads. Then Tom sees a tiny kitten trapped on the roof of the barn. He knows just what to do. Up goes the long ladder. Then up climbs Tom to rescue the helpless little kitten. Actually, there was a time when I had a kitten, and he climbed up a very tall tree in my backyard and could not get down. We had to call the fire department to come and get him down because they have these very long ladders to do so. And they came and they got the kitten down. The firefighters go back to the station. They put their equipment away carefully, and two of the firefighters make lunch. But before anyone even can sit down to eat, the chimes sound again. Bing bong, emergency, emergency. There's a fire at 4th and Elm Street. All the firefighters rush from the table. They're going to be hungry for their lunch that they did not get. And within seconds, the fire truck is speeding through the city streets. Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. Cars and trucks pull over to let the fire truck go by. People stay out of the way, too. And that happens all the time. Whenever you hear sirens, usually if you're in a car, you have to pull over to the side. Your mom would have to pull over to the side if you were in the car with her. Oh, look at the flames coming out of the 4th floor of that building. There's the fire. A police car and an ambulance are already on the scene. Sam parks the fire truck carefully, trying not to take up too much space. In front of the burning department store, other emergency vehicles are on their way, and they'll need space to park as well. Here comes a pumper truck. It's filled with extra water. Here is an aerial ladder truck. It helps rescue people from high buildings. The fire chief jumps out of his pickup truck. He gives his crew a plan for fighting the fire. Some of the firefighters put on their masks and air tanks. They race into the building. A few carry fire extinguishers. Others carry axes and crowbars to help them get past any locked doors that they might find. Tom and Bob will fight the fire from outside the building. Tom raises the fire ladder until it reaches the very top floor. Bob attaches a special tube to a fire hydrant. Now the water can flow easily to the nozzle at the very top of the ladder. And there's a picture here. You see the nozzle? It's right at the top of the ladder so that the water can come from the fire hydrant down here through the hose and all the way up there into the 4th floor. Then up climbs Tom. He aims the nozzle at the flames. Whoosh! The water puts out the fire. The fire chief checks the building inside and out. When he's sure there is no more danger, he sends his team back to the fire station. Well, now they get to sit down and have lunch, and I'm sure they're very hungry after having gone to 2 fire emergencies. Back at the firehouse, the firefighters hang up their gear. They're very tired, and they're hungrier than ever. But Tom isn't ready to sit down for lunch. Here comes Tom. Let's see what he's going to do. Today it's Tom's job to keep the fire truck clean. So he washes all the grimy dirt away. Soon the fire truck is shiny and spotless and ready for the next fire emergency. Now that was a story that taught us a lot about fire emergencies and how the firemen take care of it. And that's important for us to know. Now I have another little story here. Now this is called The Little Mermaid. And my grandson likes stories mainly about trucks. And so like trucks and trains and cars. So I'm thinking that maybe there might be some people out there, maybe some young ladies who would like to hear a story about a girl called The Little Mermaid. She has a name too. Her name is Ariel. This is a Walt Disney version of the story. King Triton, the great sea king, had many daughters who loved the undersea world. But Triton's youngest daughter, Ariel, dreamed of the world above the water's surface. She dreamed about the world of humans. Ariel and her friend Flounder liked to go to the surface to visit Scuttle, the seagull. Scuttle told them all about the humans' objects that Ariel found at the bottom of the sea. Looks like he found a fork. One day, Triton learned that Ariel's trips to the surface. The Sea King grew very angry. He asked his friend Sebastian, the crab, to keep an eye on Ariel. He did not want her going to the surface. A few days later, Ariel noticed a ship sailing way up on the surface of the water. She quickly swam toward it. Ariel, Ariel, please come back, cried Sebastian, as he and Flounder swam around her. When Ariel surfaced, she saw a huge ship filled with sailors. Ariel's eyes lit up when she spotted the sailor the others called Prince Eric. It was love at first sight. Suddenly the sky darkened, heavy rain began to fall, and lightning split the sky. The ship was tossed on the waves, and the prince was thrown overboard. Uh-oh. I've got to save him, thought Ariel. She grabbed the drowning prince and swam to shore, pulling him onto the beach. Prince Eric did not stir as Ariel gently touched his face and sang to him. Soon Ariel heard the prince's crew searching for him. She did not want to be seen by the humans, so she kissed the prince and dove back into the sea. Prince Eric awoke to find Sir Grimsby, his loyal steward, at his side. Sir Grimsby was happy that Eric was alive. A girl rescued me, said the prince. She was singing. She had the most beautiful voice. Prince Eric, too, had fallen in love. King Triton was furious when he discovered that Ariel had fallen in love with a human. He rushed to the grotto where Ariel kept her collection of humans' treasures. Contact between the human world and the mer world is strictly forbidden, Triton told her. He raised his magic trident, which is this object right here, and fired bolts of energy around the cave, destroying the treasures. Then the mighty king left. Ariel buried her face in her hands and began to cry. Meanwhile, not far away, evil forces were at work in the undersea kingdom. Ursula, the sea witch, who had tried once before to overthrow Triton, was looking for a way to take over. Through her crystal ball, she could see Ariel crying and an idea came to her. Ursula sent her slimy eel servant, here are her servants right here, these eels, to Ariel's grotto under the sea. There they convinced the little mermaid that Ursula could help her to get her beloved prince. Ariel was so upset that she ignored Sebastian's warnings and swam off with Flotsam and Jetsam to meet with the sea witch. "Ah, my dear," said the witch, "here's the deal. I'll make a potion that will turn you into a human for 3 days. Before the sun sets on the 3rd day, you've got to get dear old Prince to kiss you. If he kisses you, you'll remain human permanently. But if he doesn't, you turn back into a mermaid and you belong to me." In return for the potion, the witch wanted Ariel's voice. "My voice?" asked Ariel. "Without my voice, how can I—" "You'll still have your looks, your pretty face," replied Ursula. After Ariel agreed to Ursula's deal, an amazing change took place. Ariel's voice flew from her body and was captured in a seashell around Ursula's neck. Ariel lost her tail and grew legs and became a human. When Ariel went in search of the prince, she was helped ashore by her friends. She tried to speak to them, but no sound came out of her mouth. A short while later, Ariel saw Prince Eric. Here he is, looking very princely. The prince had been lovesick ever since hearing her song. At first, the prince thought Ariel was the girl who had rescued him, but when he learned that she couldn't speak, he knew he had to be wrong. Prince Eric felt sorry for Ariel. She needed a place to stay, so he took her back to his palace. Over the next 2 days, Prince Eric grew to like Ariel more and more. During a romantic boat ride, Eric was about to kiss Ariel when Flotsam and Jetsam overturned the boat. "That was a close one, too close," said Ariel, who was watching in her crystal ball. It's time Ursula took matters into her own tentacles. The sea witch mixed a magic potion and changed herself into a beautiful young maiden. And here is the sea witch right here. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was great excitement throughout the kingdom. Prince Eric was going to marry a young maiden he had just met. Ursula, disguised as the maiden, had used Ariel's voice to trick Eric. He now believed that the maiden was the girl who had saved him from the shipwreck. Poor Ariel was heartbroken. The wedding ceremony was to take place on Prince Eric's new boat. Scuttle flew by just as the bride passed in front of a mirror. Her reflection was that of the sea witch. Scuttle rushed off to tell Ariel and the rest of his friends. Sebastian quickly formed a plan. Flounder helped Ariel get out of Eric's ship. Scuttle arranged for some of his seagull friends to delay the wedding, and Sebastian hurried to find King Triton. Prince Eric and the maiden were about to be married when a flock of seagulls, led by Scuttle, swooped down on the bride. She screamed in the sea witch's voice. Scuttle knocked the seashell containing Ariel's voice from around the maiden's neck. The shell shattered, and Ariel's voice returned to her. See, here's the shell that was holding Ariel's voice. "It was you all the time," said Prince Eric. "Oh, Eric, I wanted to tell you," said Ariel. The sun disappeared over the horizon just as they were about to kiss. Ariel's 3 days were up. She changed back into a mermaid. Ursula grabbed Ariel and dove off the ship. Thanks to Sebastian's warning, Triton was waiting for them at Ursula's lair. I might be willing to make an exchange for someone better, cried Ursula. Triton agreed. Here's Triton. And he became Ursula's prisoner. She now had his magic trident and control of the undersea kingdom. Here's the trident. All of a sudden, a harpoon struck Ursula in the shoulder. Prince Eric had come to Ariel's rescue. Together, they swam to the surface. Ursula followed close behind him, and she grew bigger and bigger with anger until she rose out of the water. She is a huge monster. Prince Eric swam to his ship and climbed on board. He grabbed the wheel and turned the ship towards Ursula. Just as the sea witch was about to fire a deadly bolt at Ariel from the trident, the prince's ship slammed into Ursula. The evil witch was destroyed. Now that the witch was gone, Trident was freed. He rose from the sea and he saw Ariel watching Prince Eric, and he who was lying over there quite unconscious. She really does love him, doesn't she? Asked the Sea King. Sebastian, who was nearby, nodded. Yes, she does. I'm going to miss her, Trident said. Then he raised his trident and shot a magic bolt at Ariel's tail. The little mermaid's tail disappeared, and once again she had legs. And now Ariel was a human. Prince Eric awoke in time to see his Ariel running onto the shore. He kissed her, and they were married that very day. After the wedding, Prince Eric and Ariel sailed off on their honeymoon to live happily ever after. Now, some of you may have seen this story in cartoons, and this is a Disney cartoon story. So I hope that you enjoyed that. And we have just one more short story to do. And this is called Calling All Engines. Now, my grandson loves these little Thomas Train stories, so I thought you might enjoy this one as well. Calling All Engines. Now, summer is a busy time in the land of Sodor. The engines love to show travelers around the island. They visit the seaside, the windmill, and the new Sodor suspension bridge. Here's the suspension bridge. So you can see this is the whole island of Sodor that Thomas and his train friends live on. One morning, Sir Thomas Hatt came to the shed. He had a very important announcement to make. A new airport is to be built on Sodor, and I need all of you to help. The engines were very excited. Thomas and Percy were coupled to freight cars full of bricks and timber to take to the airport building site. Imagine all of the travelers, chuffed Thomas, and all the airplanes, puffed Percy. Then Ari and Bert came along. Stinky Steamy's in the way again, rumbled Ari. Why do we have to work near them, grumbled Bert. This made Thomas and Percy cross. They didn't want to work near the Diesels either. The Diesels were oily, and they seemed very different to the Steamies. Thomas, Percy, Ari, and Bert worked at the airport all afternoon. They shunted freight cars full of bricks and tar. The Diesels bumped Thomas and biffed Percy. Dirty Diesels, moaned Perry. I don't like them. Thomas and Perry had been so excited about working at the airport, but Ari and Bert were there, and now it wasn't any fun at all. That night, a hurricane swept through the island. It was the strongest wind the engines had ever known. All night long, the wind howled down the tracks. It tore down the trees and ripped off roofs. The next morning, now here's a picture of the Sodor Island the next morning. It looks like the bridge has fallen down. It was swept away with the high winds. Thomas gasped at what he saw. "Bust my buffers," he cried. "Look at what the wind has done." The seaside had been battered, the windmill was wrecked, and the Sodor suspension bridge had collapsed. And Thomas felt terrible about all this. Sir Topham Hatt came to see the engines. "The hurricane has done lots of damage," he said sadly. "Everyone will have to work even harder if we want to open the airport." Edward and Henry brought bricks to the airport building, while Diesel arrived with a load of timber. But the diesels weren't talking to the steam engines, and the steam engines weren't talking to the diesels. Everyone was very cross and annoyed with each other. That afternoon, Thomas had to collect some paint for the bridge. He puffed into the builder's yard to pick up the pots of paint. But Diesel was in the yard too. "Now I'll show Thomas who's best," Diesel whispered, and he gave the freight cars an extra hard shove. Paint pots flew into the air and spattered down all over Thomas. Thomas looked very silly indeed. "Spotty boiler," laughed Diesel, and he rolled away. "I'll show those diesels," Thomas huffed. Oh, he's angry now. So the next time Thomas saw Airy, he gave him a biff. And then Airy saw James, he gave him a bash. Soon the diesels and the steamies were biffing and banging and being bashed all over the island. The engines were in a terrible mess, and no work had been done. That evening Sir Topham Hatt came to see the engines. He was very angry. "You have caused confusion and delay. The seaside is still a mess. The bridge isn't painted, and we will not be able to open the airport. No travelers were come to Sodor this year." "No travelers," moaned Thomas. "And no airplanes?" groaned Percy. All the engines knew that they had behaved badly, and so they were kind of sad about this. That night, Thomas had a dream. He was puffing along a misty mountain track, and there was Lady. Lady was a very special engine on the island of Sodor. She worked high up in the mountains. Lady was shunting trucks with Rusty the diesel engine, and Thomas was surprised. She said, "We always finish our jobs when we work together," puffed Lady. The next morning, when Thomas woke up, he had an idea. First, he went straight to see Mavis. Mavis was a kind diesel engine, and Thomas knew she would listen to what he had to say. He told Mavis that he wanted the steam engines and the diesels to work together. Mavis agreed. It was the only way to get the airport open in time. "Let's have a big meeting with all the engines at the coaling stop tomorrow," Thomas puffed. Thomas and Mavis went to see the other engines to tell them about the meeting. Thomas told Percy. Mavis told Diesel, then James, then Ari, then Emily, then Bert. The next day, the engines gathered at the coaling stop. The steam engines and the diesels were all lined up. Thomas blew his whistle. "Steamies and diesels need to work together," chuffed Thomas. "If the airport doesn't open, it will be bad for all of the engines. Both steam engines and diesel engines need passengers and freight to be useful. If we work together, we can get the job done," said Thomas. All the engines agreed. After that, the engines worked harder than ever. They hauled bricks and timber and cleared away debris from the storm. They moved paint and tar and made sure there were enough workers to do each job. And all the engines were very careful not to bump or block each other. Even Diesel 10, the biggest diesel engine of all, agreed to help out. Soon the engines were even enjoying working together, smiling and joking as friends will do. Before long the airport was finished. It had shining buildings and a big tall control tower, and the runway was long and smooth. The engines were very proud and very excited. "I can't wait for the travelers," puffed Thomas. "And look," peeped Percy, "here comes the first airplane." Now that's a story of how people can come to be friends who maybe didn't like each other so much in the beginning, but they ended up liking each other, they worked together, and they got the job done. So that is the end of story time for today. I just want to mention to you to remember that Mr. Andrew will be playing music and presenting story time, which is free to everyone. And he does it for all ages are welcome. And he does this on every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. over in the Kingsman Park in Upper Chichester. So that would be Tuesday the June 29th and then July the 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. The other thing is I wanted to mention to you is our family fun nights that we're also having on Tuesday nights. And this will be up at the Upper Chi Community Center, which is on Route 452. And they start at 6:30, and they have various programs each Tuesday, all the way through to the end of July. And the last one will be a nice ice cream party for everybody. So come and join the fun on Tuesdays, in the morning at Kingsman Park, and in the evenings at the Upper Chi Community Center. Goodbye for today.